Hello, everyone, and welcome again to one of the success stories from our student, Dr. Azim Arastu, who has joined us. He recently accepted a pre-match, and he's here to share his journey with you all. So, welcome, Dr. Arastu. How are you? And thank you
I'm
for coming here.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
All journey, year of graduation, and anything else that you want to introduce yourself about the viewers.
Sure, I'm from Hyderabad, India, where I completed my medical school as well. So around second year to third year itself, I was like motivated to pursue this USMLE journey, and that's when I started the preparation. And after final year, I completed my electives and stuff. Luckily, I did them before the COVID, so I was able to do CS and electives sooner.
Okay.
And I pushed my graduation date for 1 year, and then this year in 2020, I graduated, applied for categorical IM, and got a pre-match offer, so I've accepted it.
Okay. Into the start of the journey, when did you start preparing for step one? When did you complete step one? So was it after your second year? And so talk through that journey for us.
Yeah, it was around second to third year of my medical school.
Okay.
But it was not like dedicated prep. I would just do on and off whenever I get time from the regular exams.
Okay.
So that actually I pushed it a lot. Like I did it after my final year in my internship year.
I see. Okay. And what about CK?
Yeah, that's actually the reason I got very little time for CK, and I had to just rush into CK and complete it as fast as possible in order to get ECFMG certified and apply this year. So for CK, I just prepared for 6 months.
I see. And you did your electives as part of your internship?
Internship, yeah, in 2019 itself.
Okay. And did you do what, 3 or 4 months of electives?
I did 7 months.
So tell us about your electives. How many months did you do it, and was it university or clinic or a combination?
Sure, I did 6 to 7 months of US clinical experience, and the university electives were 3 months. The rest 3 months were hospitals or clinics.
Okay. And once you finished your CK and electives and NCS, this was all pre-COVID, then you started on your application and
That's correct, yeah.
So before we jump into the application and the interview prep, was it anything else in your medical school, like volunteering or anything that you found useful in your application later on?
Yes, we did have some volunteering experiences like the pulse polio and all, but those were not like extensive for weeks on end.
Do differently, if at all, for that exam phase? Would anything be different if you were to repeat something?
Yes, definitely. I would preferably get done with step one as soon as possible, preferably in second year or third year itself. So that actually gives you double benefit. The first benefit is that you get a lot of clinical elective opportunities. So most of the universities, maybe not now because of COVID, but they accept you only if you have step one.
I see.
So that severely reduced my chances for getting electives. So that's the first benefit. The second benefit is that you get more time to finish your CK. And if you have time, I would also do step 3.
Okay. So because you could not do step 1 on time, you were hampered by the lack of electives because you were not eligible for many of the universities because you didn't have step 1 as what.
Right.
Okay. So step 1, take it on time so that you can be prepared for the electives as and when the universities open it back. And you are saying that step 3 should also be considered if you have enough time.
Definitely. In many of my interviews, I was asked about step 3, where I'm planning for it or I've already taken it. So if you have step 3, it's a big plus.
Okay.
Irrespective of the visa status. Like some people think if they don't need visa, they don't need to write step 3. There's nothing like that. It's better to get done with it.
So now let's talk about the internal medicine. How did you get interested in internal medicine, and did you consider any other specialties?
I did actually. I considered clinical radiology and anesthesia.
Okay.
but it's like world apart, but in even emergency medicine actually. So in my final year, I was not exactly sure about what I was going to do. So I used the clinical elective time to get exposure in various electives. Although people say you need to be specialty specific, I thought it's better to use the chance to learn and also to develop interest in one particular specialty. So after my electives, I was like sure that internal medicine is a good way to go forward, and it has multiple fellowship options as well, depending on your interest.
So, just to be clear, your electives were internal medicine, radiology, and other specialties also, or?
Yeah, it was like one month was emergency medicine, 1 month of clinical radiology, and the other months were internal medicine related super specialties.
Okay, so that made you realize that you really wanted to do internal medicine. What were the reasons? What were the driving forces behind you picking internal medicine?
So the first thing is actually being realistic as well, because the chances of matching, you need to consider that as well.
Correct.
So that was always there. But other than that, I was like, it has many fellowship opportunities, and it gets you a base, makes you a holistic physician. So after that, I can decide, like, I want to keep my mind open. So that's the reason I decided in internal medicine.
Okay. So once you decided and you started on your application and interview journey. So tell us how you approached your application, and then of course you joined Sarthi. So walk us through that, your approach to the IRAS application.
Yes, actually, I was very anxious about this whole thing because I had no clue about it. And even if you know people, you can't just keep asking them every single thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I decided I will join USMLE Sarthi. I joined it before the interview, before the application season, like
Right.
June, July, August, around that time when I was preparing for CK itself. So that is perhaps one of the most important decisions I made. So it was definitely a godsend, in the sense that you people guide us at each step of the way, and like there are so many small doubts you have, you can't keep bugging other people. Even if you know people to guide you, you can't keep asking them whether I should write this or this, whether I should email them now or not. So that way, especially the Telegram group, there is a panel, there is a whole panel of physicians, people who are there to guide you at each step of the way. So that, and even the Arastu CV and the application, I was able to complete because of the Sarthi classes and the guidance which we people provided, etc.
Okay. How was the personal statement? How did you go about personal statement? How did you gather your thoughts on various stories, experiences? Then I think we reviewed it and all that.
Right. So personal statement, usually it has to be written over months and not weeks or days. But I did not have time. Like I said, I was studying for CK until the end. So I had to do it in a rush. But fortunately, I did have a personal statement which I had made for my electives.
Okay.
So I started working on that as a base draft, and then I made edits and tailored it in a week or two maybe. But that's not the ideal way. You should start working on it like months in advance. And then I submitted it to USMLE Sarthi, and fortunately, like you people, even though you had deadlines, even though I did it like after the deadline, you gave me a chance and you actually reviewed it, edited it, and gave me advice. Not really did it for me, but gave me good tips and what to include, what not to include. Same as for Ira's CV as well. How to write it, the grammar, the attention to detail. That is really what I liked.
So then let's start talking about your interview preparation. How did you go about the interview preparation? When did you start after the application submission, or did you start before it?
Immediately after the application submission in October this year, I had got done with CK, so I had free time. And before the interview started coming in, I started preparing, like the setting up the lights, the camera, the mic, everything, because everything is virtual this season.
Right.
So yeah, I started that, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos apart from the Sarthi classes. Of course, the Sarthi classes had in-depth analysis, everything, and even the mock interviews provided by Sarthi, those were also helpful. and also read a book. It's called The Successful Match or Success Match something. So yeah, those are the resources I used.
Okay. And now coming to the actual interviews, of course you accepted pre-match, but you had a lot of interviews. What was the interview experience like? What type of questions were they asking you, and were you prepared for those questions?
Yes, definitely. Most of the questions, actually, I felt this virtual thing to be good because it cuts the chase and cuts to the point straight away. No need to travel, no need to waste money and all that. Directly the point. So the questions were pretty much, they kept repeating the same kind of questions. I did not have any out of the blue questions or something like that. Tell me about yourself, strengths and weaknesses, why this program. That is one question which almost everyone asks, and it's difficult to prepare. You need to prepare that in advance because most of the websites are vague and stuff. So why this program? And about you, tell me about yourself, your journey, your experience and stuff like that.
Okay, so you were fairly comfortable in the virtual interview world?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So now let me ask you, was the pre-match interview different in any way from the other NRMP programs in terms of the questions, in terms of the interaction? What do you think the pre-match programs look for?
It was a bit shorter, as in there was no resident interaction, there was no tour. Like usually the interview is for 4 to 5 hours and there are different segments. So this was just the main segment of the interview with the program director and the attending and whatnot. So it was shorter and the questions were more or less the same. There was no difference in the questions.
Okay. Yeah. And then of course they made you the offer and you accepted it. At a high level, what factors were you considering as you were weighing this option? Was it only geography? Was it because match is uncertain, so you have to go through the match till March? Was it some of those factors? Did you consult your seniors? What made you decide, okay, I will take it and get done with it?
Yeah, it's definitely a big decision, and I asked a lot of people, mostly the seniors and mentors, and of course the Sarthi team. So the factors were that the number of interviews you have, how have you performed in those interviews, where this program ranks in your interview list.
Correct. Yeah.
And of course the climate, the geography, the fellowship chances, or if you are interested in fellowship, that is, and all those factors. So the main thing was that I believe that a bird in hand is worth more than two birds in the bush. So and this is I know I have like so many birds in the bush, but still so I didn't want uncertainty basically. I want something which is I can work on it. So what if I don't match, then next year what, and all those things. I just got his chance, I took it.
Okay. So you had a great journey, very successful. Anything else you want to tell students who may still be in MBBS or about to graduate? What things to focus on? Is there anything we missed?
I think we covered. One thing I would like to say is, if first of all, decide if you're doing USMLE for the right reason. Don't just do it because your friend is doing. Don't just do it because it sounds cool. First of all, decide. You have to have a good reason, and once you decide, it takes a lot of effort, dedication, hard work, even money. Like some people, I have seen people lack each of. If you have all of these things, then you can, then it leads to, because this journey is not like some people just take it up and then they lose interest and stuff. So I would say make a decision, don't be divided upon it.
So start to finish, the day you decide step 1 or USMLE to the say about the match, did it take about 18 months, 2 years? What was the start to finish for you?
If you count the second year, third year, then it will be like 5 years or something. But the dedicated period, it would be like 2 years. Like after my final year, that's when I just started working only on this. So 2 years, yeah.
So recent graduates or about to be graduates, make sure you have your timeline under control. That is one lesson. I think spend enough time on CK. That's another lesson. Now, what would you advise people who may have already done the exams and are applying for the next season? So they are now left with application, probably interviews, of course, and maybe doing CK. So, what would you advise to them in terms of the USC and just going through the next 8 or 9 months?
I would say try to give step 3 if you can.
Okay.
That is one thing, because even most of the residents I have spoken to in the interviews, they said it's better to get done with it, so you have time in your, because it's a pain to do it after you start residency. That's what I heard.
I see.
Plus it helps in your application as well. So if you can do step 3, it's good, it'll help you.
So step 3, and what about how much time, ideal time, do you think they should do application, personal statement before diving into the interviews? Because if we have to count backwards from say September 15th,
I would say roughly from June you should not start working on it 24/7, but start working on it in the background. These things cannot be done overnight, especially your Arastu CV and the personal statement and stuff. So if they can, I would suggest going for USMLE Sarthi, like I said, because I had a good experience. So from June, July, I would say start working on it in the background if you are done with the steps and everything else.
Okay. Steps and USC, of course.
USC.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. I think that was what we had on the agenda. Anything at all that we missed that you would want to just close with? Any other piece of advice?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Arastu. This was great. Appreciate your time and guidance for the students who are going into the match in the coming season. So I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.